Good morning, everyone. We're really thrilled that you're joining the Financial Coaching Network and us this morning to talk a little bit about rebuilding Harvey and some of the things that the Financial Coaching Network is concentrating on, focusing on. I'm really happy that Adrian Lira and Von Green are joining us today. So we've got two great guest speakers, and we're excited that you were able to attend with us this morning to talk about what we are doing after Harvey. At the same time, I know the Financial Coaching Network had a lot of webinars, and we haven't had them for a little while, and so we're happy to be able to bring these back to help support the network with what we are doing and moving forward, and we're going to be having these on a consistent basis moving forward as well. So thank you for spending some time with us on a beautiful Friday, and we're going to get started. Everybody is muted, so if you do have questions, please go ahead and type them in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer those at the end as we move forward. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be uploaded to the United Way Thrive portal at the end. The website, username, and password are there. If you have any questions about how to access this webinar or any of the other webinars that we've done before, please let me know, and I can make sure I get those for you. As I mentioned, we do have two guests with us today. Adrian Lira is the clinical manager here at Family Houston, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about self-care, a little bit about what we might see with our clients, a little bit about the mental health impact of what a traumatic event such as Harvey has. If you were impacted directly, indirectly, family or friends, if you're out helping people, or if you were just watching the news. We know that everyone has impact there, and with the rain that we had yesterday and the day before and some of those things, you know, there was a lot of talk about how that really resurfaced a lot of things for individuals regardless how they were impacted because it was coming. In addition, Yvonne Green, who's the director for Bank on Houston, is here, and she's going to give us a quick update on some of the banking themes and then also reintroduce us to the bank finding tool. I was reading an interesting study not too terribly long ago that talked about how individuals who are banked, if they have a banking account of any time, they increase income, they increase savings, they pay down debt, and they increase credit score a lot faster than individuals who do not. And so it's one of those that I think, you know, talking about that banking relationship and how to help people who do want to be banked and are looking for options is a great opportunity. So we're happy to have Yvonne with us today. So in addition to the mental health and the Bank on Houston, I do want to touch base on a few resources that are available out there and talk a little bit about some of the other cool things that are happening. And then we're going to talk about some cons and scams as well that we typically see during disasters and this time of year so that we can be a little bit educate our clients a little bit on that side with what they're doing. So the resources. One of the things I did not want to do is go through and give you a whole bunch of resources and drop a whole lot of information on top of you. We know that the community has responded brilliantly. I do not know how many rebuilding from Harvey disaster relief guides and resources and things that we did get. But one of the things that I do want to just highlight is, FEMA and SBA are going to be two of the biggest players when we're talking about rebuilding efforts. And then also United Way 211. I want to remind everybody that United Way 211 has some excellent publications that you can get. They're fantastic about getting those out, and they are going to be a fantastic resource moving forward with looking. A few additional financial resources that I do want to share with you all that I came across. And then one tip there is, I was so impressed with how many emails I got from my internet company and from my cell phone provider and from my utility company saying, we're not going to shut you off. We're going to waive any late fees. We know this is going. I have heard of a few places that have not waived fees, but I had a client in here yesterday and we were talking and they did not receive the email and they ended up with a fee. Well, they called that company and said, hey, this is what happened. I was impacted by the storm and it's a national group. And because they even said that, they really quickly waived the fees as well. So if you do have clients that are saying, I wasn't able to pay, I was impacted, things like this happened, again, one of the things we are always preaching in the Financial Coaching Network is talk to the people you owe money to, right? Keep those communications lines open, especially if it's civil, so please do that as well. Something else that I learned that's pretty cool is that if you do have a state ID that was lost or missing due to the storm, that they are waiving the replacement fee. So that is really cool. They are saying, please bring any documentation that you have if you do not have your driver's license or your state ID to go and do that. And they're working very, very hard to try to get that done. Even though the third point here is not a financial resource per se, one of the things that I have seen over and over is if you are spending money on anything related to the storm or the disaster, please save your receipts. Please advocate for your clients to save their receipts. This can be really important when we're talking about the adjusters that might be coming out to the house. If you are filing an insurance claim, I know that the IRS, if you did have some loss, the IRS, you are able to write some things off. I am not an expert, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is because that is not my forte. But if you go to the IRS webpage, there is a casualty loss section, and it talks specifically about from Hurricane Harvey and what it looks like, but you're going to need some of those receipts. So save everything, even if you did not directly impact it, but you did provide some relief and some support. It's going to be really important to save those there. Finally, there are two guides that were out there that I came across that were really, really cool, talking specifically about rebuilding your financial life after a disaster or a storm. The first one I do just want to point out to you all is Credit Builders Alliance. Credit Builders Alliance is a great resource out there that's called Credit and Natural Disasters, and it's tips for financial coaches and lenders how to manage credit after a natural disaster. So that there is a really, really great piece that I do want to let you know is on the Credit Builders Alliance website. And then also mint.com, which has the app, the money management thing. They, in addition, have a really great resource out there about how to manage finances before and through a natural disaster. It's not too long piece. And as I'm looking through it, it highlights and stresses a lot of the things that we talk about on a regular basis with financial coaches. Let's be purposeful with our money. Let's make sure we have a plan and a goal moving forward, that we're not making a lot of knee-jerk reactions. And so I was really, really happy with those two pieces and wanted to just share that information for you all and what that looks like. One other resource, and this came across my desk yesterday, is that they've extended the deadline for unemployment benefits if you were impacted by the storm through October 31st. This is really great. I know that a lot of people have been trying to get a hold of the line, and we had a presentation by someone from the Workforce Solutions office, and they said that people are on the phone for 4 or 5 hours trying to get through. Because there is such a need and demand, they have extended that deadline. If you have clients that were impacted that are trying to file for this, a few things that we can do to help is to go on the TWC website and see what documents that we need. One of the things that I have heard is that people are being delayed in getting their benefits because they do not have their documents together. You do have to file a full claim on there, but they are processing those as quickly as they possibly can. So I want to let you know that that is going on, and then that's another really great resource that is out there that we have. So with that, I would like to, again, welcome Adrian, and I'm going to turn the presentation over to him, and he's going to talk a little bit about stress, self-care, and what some things we can see from the mental health perspective. So, Adrian, thank you for being with us this morning. You have control, and welcome.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. The topic of stress and self-care is it's especially important, given the recent events in our area and really around the world. And I'd like to first start with defining some important terms. What is stress? What is a crisis? And what is a trauma? Stress, we can define that as an individual's perception of a challenging situation and the body's response to the situation, the physiological response. Crisis, on the other hand, is an event or a situation that is perceived as variably difficult and that exceeds an individual's available resource and ability to cope with that given situation. And then there's a trauma. Now, the trauma, that's the prolonged emotional response to a terrible event, such as an accident or a natural disaster. And when considering traumas in crisis, it's important to remember that traumas begin as a crisis, but not all crises develop into traumas. And socioeconomic status and the availability of emotional and other protective factors that determine whether a disaster remains a crisis or develops into a traumatic experience. And we've all seen the news and heard stories of people faced with life-threatening situations. However, many, and if not most of those individuals will not develop trauma, which is good for us to know. I'm trying to switch it over. So the initial response to a stressful crisis situation varies from person to person. Trying to switch the thing. Let me see. Okay, there we go. And some people, the initial shock, disbelief, fear, and anxiety arise. Others enter survival mode, which is the fight, flight, or freeze response that kicks in. Initially, individuals might feel unprotected, vulnerable, and lost. And even those with the ability to respond to the initial stress, they still experience a sense of vulnerability. They're no longer in control of situations that they used to manage. They might feel that they are not able to protect their family, which, they feel that's their primary responsibility. During the initial emotional effects, people are solution-driven. Basically, they think of stuff like, what do I need to do to remain safe, or what do I need to do to survive? And reacting to events takes precedence over responding to events. So reacting, you just do, you don't really think about, versus responding, you sit back and analyze. People are not in the analyzing portion at this moment. And these responses can at times follow the timeline. The triggering event in this reaction stress timeline on the screen is a natural disaster. And the initial reactions could be varied, but among them are disbelief, shock, anxiety, and even entering that survival mode. The immediate needs or coping is providing for the basic needs, and that should be the initial focus. So how can you survive, basically, or what do I need to overcome the situation? In this moment in time, seeking counseling is not the high priority for affected people. And any crisis interventions are not process-focused. Rather, we're looking at action-oriented and situation-focused interventions. And these are going to prepare clients to manage the traumatic event. And with assistance, the client can begin to formulate a safety plan, which is where we all come in, help them formulate a safety plan to cope with current and anticipated challenges related to that crisis. One positive reaction to disasters, if we can even think of one, is that there's a cohesiveness that develops among survivor groups. So that's the support system. It's fully activated. And it is common for individuals to develop a shared sense of community and connectedness. Family members, they may express the need to be with each other all the time. And in fact, that family connection has actually proven to decrease anxiety and fear in individuals, especially in children. And it serves as a protective factor from trauma symptoms and down the line. The next phase in the timeline is that restabilization. So you're going to return to home and you're going to try to initiate regular routines. Displaced individuals are more likely to develop trauma due to the lack of support and the lost space. They've lost in some situations everything. Uh, but if they are returning home and they are returning to damaged homes and damaged communities, then this serves as a reminder of the crisis, and that can lead to an increased risk of trauma symptoms. So returning home might be the triggering event, kind of like at the beginning of the timeline. That might be the triggering event that produces the symptoms. So it's the aftermath rather than the actual natural disaster that might initiate these symptoms. There's actually been studies on Hurricane Katrina, and those who remained in their communities, for example, found that their trauma symptoms increased over the course of 3 years following the incident. So their damaged communities served as a constant reminder of the incident. So they lost loved ones, and also the racial economical injustice faced by seeing that officials did not assist with rebuilding communities. So in some situations, if they are returning to neighborhoods that are not taken care of and are not being rebuilt, that can increase the trauma symptoms. And on rare occasions, symptoms may have delayed onset, and they might even appear months or years later, which is that emergence of the secondary stress reaction. That actually leads us to the second wave trauma. So as time goes by, the enormity of the crisis will begin to sink in, and the symptoms may become manifest for the first time. So some individuals may experience or might not experience any significant reactions for a long time, but will relapse quickly when faced with a similar life stressor in the future. Richard mentioned the rains that were happening this week. So that inclement weather or threats of severe storms, hurricanes, earthquakes, all of which we've heard in the past few weeks, that is something that we are, like I said, seeing right now. So the instantaneous transmission and unfolding of events, that's going to increase the anxiety to an already stressed individual. So watching the news, being on social media, all that really puts us in proximity to the events, even though we're not necessarily close, but that gives us that proximity. Symptoms to be aware of during the second wave are anxiety. The person could be sleeping more or sleeping less, just depending. There might be some irritability, some flashbacks, even some dissociation. So that's an emotional numbness when there should be some emotion present. So they're just not feeling at that moment. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the impact on children. So children might experience fear and anxiety. They might not want to be away from caregivers, so that separation anxiety will kick in. Children will be faced with adjusting with many changes. So they might be living in a new home, or they might be staying with relatives, even at a shelter, and also changing schools. They might act out aggressively and display anger, and they might be socially withdrawn and even experience somatic symptoms, right? So they might complain of stomach aches, headaches, even diarrhea, and at times children might regress. So they're taking on behaviors that they did when they were younger. They might desire to avoid school, so they don't want to attend classes, and they develop fears about the weather and their physical safety. So it's important to be mindful of all of that. And children, they draw most of their cues about how to react to crisis from their parents. So it's helpful if parents remain calm. But, that's not always possible when faced with life-threatening situations. And the most helpful thing for children is to remain close to their family or to be reunited with them as soon as possible. I haven't really heard of a lot happening during the hurricane, but I'm sure there was instances where the children were separated. Actually being with the family is the most helpful thing for children to not go on and develop those trauma symptoms. And there are 3 factors that have been shown to increase the likelihood that children will develop that trauma. These factors include, first of all, the severity of the event, where they directly impacted, the parent's reaction to the event. So if the parent is having anxiety, and if the parent is reacting in a way that shows that life-threatening situation, that, of course, will affect the child, and also the physical proximity to the event. So those are the 3 factors that influence whether it will develop into a trauma. And like I mentioned, the constant news coverage and the availability of social media can make even distant crisis situations appear close. So it's important for parents and for all of us, who continually watch the news and display and voice fear and concern about the unfolding events in front of children to decrease that. So we don't want to have them see as much. So maybe limit their online activity or even limit our own viewing of the news. And for most individuals, being faced with an isolated or a single event trauma, uh, that will not produce trauma symptoms for most people. And it is important to know that any affected population may need services. So that's regardless of their socioeconomic status. A natural disaster really affects all of us in one way or another. There might be some shame to seeking help, whether it be financial or emotional. And that shame, if not addressed, can lead to symptoms down the line. And that leads to a question, what can we do to help? That's what most of us want to do. And the first thing is to make sure that we're okay. And you can't help others if you're not well, right? So self-care, with that, enrolling a partner, it actually helps to keep you and that person accountable. And it actually increases the likelihood of engaging in self-care. Exercise, which is a lot of us hear about that. So exercise is a natural and effective way of decreasing the effects of the stress hormones. So that's a good way to engage in self-care. There are various other things that you can do. Basically, whatever relaxes you, whatever makes you feel better, increasing in that self-care. Healthy, of course, right? But if you're increasing in that self-care, then you're modeling to others effective ways of managing stress, and that's also important. And at times, you and we might need a little extra help, So in those situations, there's counselors here at Family Houston or other areas that can help you, and we're here to help you. And that's what I have for today. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Adrian, for joining us this morning and talking a little bit about like that. Again, as you said, Family Houston's here to support you. We have the great resource of Thrive Connection that's able to help us and jump on. In addition, Thrive Connection, and we did mention this at the Thrive meeting on Wednesday, is if your organization or agency does want some information more about how to identify clients that may be having some stressors and some things in life that they would like to talk to someone, and we call that identifying mental health red flags. In addition, there is a self-care presentation that we do specifically for staff, and so we have that there that we're given. So again, thank you for being on. Fantastic information. And now I want to jump into cons and scams and some of the things that unfortunately we're seeing and some of the things that we do have going on out there anytime that there's a disaster. They say that when there is a big event or a disaster, it brings out the best and worst of people. And I really think that we've seen that. I was amazed when the storm was happening, when people were being rescued, that there were more volunteers waiting around just to help than what was needed at some places. I heard of many people going to their local churches or the local disaster recovery places, and they're saying, "Oh, thanks, we're good today. Try to come back tomorrow." So we know that a lot of people were amazing. At the same time, there were a lot of stories and things out of just kind of the worst of it all. And unfortunately, we've got to be a little knowledge or have a little knowledge and protect ourselves through that there. So I'm going to go over some traditional cons and scams that we've been seeing on a regular basis. So the first thing that I do definitely want to talk about is making sure that we're protecting ourselves. FEMA and the SBA inspectors, and this is big at the top here, they have said multiple times that they never charge anybody for assistance or for the inspections that they're doing. I heard all too often that there were individuals saying that, oh, we're a FEMA inspector and we're not going to be able to get to you here, but if you want to put your name on a priority list, it's $25. We can get you sooner. And they had no ID, no nothing. But when people are in crisis and they want to rebuild their lives and go back to where they want to be, it's very easy for you to say, oh, okay, sure, here's $25. Let me get to the jump of the line first and things like that. We want to make sure, and I know that FEMA and the SBA and the adjusters and inspectors said we do not charge people. That is nothing that we're ever going to ask for. And so you see that. So, and then the three big areas that I do want to specifically talk about this morning are home repairs, fake charities, and also identity theft that we know is going on and can happen as well. So a few specific things about home repairs is rebuilding is going to take time. I've heard a few people say, oh, my home was flooded. Hopefully we'll be up and running in 3 months. And some people will be. We also know there's only so many supplies, so many contractors, and so many individuals doing that kind of work. And so it's going to take a long time for some people to get up there. And so going slow is important. I know that patience is very, very difficult at times, but we definitely want to make sure when making home repairs that we are going slow, that we're taking our time, and we're doing what we need to do moving forward. So solicitors with home repairs. After the storm, I was at a friend's house, and we were doing it, and I was amazed at how many people were walking the street saying, hey, we do cabinetry work, we do flooring work, and we got a whole lot of business cards. But and we know that they're out there trying to get business and trying to get their names out. But if you have solicitors that are too willing, they want to come work, and they want to provide you a quick quote, but they need to know how much insurance money you're going to get. They need to know what your bank account information is. They need to get your social security number so that they can enter you in some federal database or something to make sure that you get credit for something. We hear all sorts of things that happen. We want to make sure that we're aware of that, and then we're taking a step back. We hear this often, is if somebody's coming to help and say, oh, you've got homeowner's insurance, well, your deductible is 2%, let's say, and so that would be $4,000. Well, you don't worry about paying that. We'll pay that for you. We hear this a lot. Sign with us now, and we won't worry about that. We'll pay that deductible up there. We'll go do the work, and we'll get it done. Well, the deductible goes to the insurance company, so if they're going to do the work, and for our example, we'll say your deductible was $4,000, well, they're going to do the work at $4,000 less than what anybody else can, and that's something to be cautious of and worry about. And and it's one of those, and the best advice that I've heard from a lot of people is you deal with the insurance company separately, you deal with the contractor separately. You never want to sign something where they say they're going to make the payments, because we've also heard of times people signing it, saying that they'll pay it, they pay the money all to the contractor, and then next thing you know, the insurance company comes back and says, no, you still owe us this amount before we can release additional funds to you, and it can get messy. They say that there's safety workers. We've unfortunately heard of 2 times that this has happened already, where people will come in and say, well, based upon a utility maintenance or based upon this, you need to leave your house, even if it was in disrepair, flooded or not, for the next 3 hours because we're worried that gases might leak as we fix a pipe or we do this. Well, what happens? They get a couple people out of their house, they know they're gone, and and then they get robbed. It's a really, really sad. At the same time, I did hear a story that they did on Fox 26 where they were talking about individuals who were going out and going in and saying, before the storm, saying, so this storm's coming, do you think you guys are going to leave and stay? We're doing a public survey or something along those lines. They're trying to get that information. At the same time, if they have no business cards, they're not listed in phone books, they're not with the Better Business Bureau, they've unmarked trucks, they're just showing up. It doesn't mean that they're bad people, but it also means that they may be trying to take advantage of the situation and what it looks like moving forward. So please be careful with that as you're looking at it. A few other home repair things. And anyone who pushes you to make a really quick decision or sign a contract right there, I'm always wary of that. It's one of those that if they say, well, if you sign with me now, we can give you 20% off. Well, okay. Well, sometimes people sign that, they get the 20% off, and then they're put on a list, and that individual is going to be getting into your house 9 to 11 months later down the road. Or you sign a contract, you think you're getting a really good deal, and then next thing you know, you give them a little bit of money up front or things like that, and then you don't do anything. They do really shoddy work or anything along those lines. Best practice, regardless how you're rebuilding or what it is, get multiple quotes and have people moving forward. Payments. If they will only accept cash, be wary. The Better Business Bureau put out a statement that says never pay in cash for people for things going up. It's one of those that it's safer to have a paper trail and things along those. Never pay for the entire amount up front, like that. And again, if they're asking for how much insurance you have or savings you have or help from friends that you have, before giving you a quote, be really wary of that, right? The individual that says, I only have $25,000 to fix this house, can you do it? You know, the wise businessman will say, yes, I can do it for $25,000. And they think they're getting a deal regardless how much it is. So be very careful with that. Anyone that will not put something in writing, right? We hear this all the time with different individuals. It's specifically happening now too is, hey, I know that it says that it's $3,000 to do this work, but you know, I can really get you a deal because I know a guy that can get something, so it's really going to be $2,300, and we'll just take care of that on the back end. You pay me the $3,000 and I'll pay, or $3,000 and I'll pay back the $700 at the end. We see that there. So be wary of that. Getting an itemized invoice and receipt for your items that are purchased. It's important that you know how much it is. We know that items are going to be in high demand. We also know that organizations that and big businesses that bring those items into the area, they've been stocking on a regular basis. So if you have someone that says, well, it's really difficult to get a new toilet into your place right now, and so because of that, you know, it usually costs $100, but it's $150 now, feel free to call Malarkey and say, no, that isn't what it is. Also, just a good rule of thumb is when a price is too good to be true, it usually is. So we want to be careful to make sure that we're being aware of that. When it comes to fake charities, and this one here hits me really hard, I think, is because there's so many people out there and so many people on the call right now that are doing really good work, is that people are claiming that they are with a charity. They're going door to door saying that they're going to help, but they may be or they may not be. You know, we know a lot of money is coming in to Houston from a lot of different ways. And so it's one of those just to be aware of if you hear people doing things, because the group that says that they're a charity gets a lot of money and nothing comes back. You know, that hurts everybody that's really trying to do good work. You know, again, people who are associated with disaster relief dollars, you know, and say they want to do things, but they need a down payment from you and able to cover a copay or deductible to work with you. Oh, you pay us, we'll pay the insurance company, and then we can help and we can do some of those things. You know, that's something you want to stay away from. At the same time, if charities are asking for bank account or personal information on the phone when they call you just so that they can help with some of those, be wary of that. And if there's anything that you're unfamiliar with, please research that, find out what's going on. We know that there's a lot of great groups doing work. We know that in the next 6 months, in the next year, in the next 2 years, there's going to be a lot of groups coming in from different parts of the country helping to do different projects through organizations, through nonprofits, through charities, through churches, through service leadership groups. And so if you're unfamiliar with something, it doesn't mean that they're bad, but it's always a good idea to do some research before giving funds to others. Also, here's something that we've seen is people are mucking and gutting, people are throwing things away, and looking at that is, you know, it's always best practice to know where papers are, things like that. Shred information before you're throwing it away. If you are working with an insurance company, go ahead and make sure that you're contacting the insurance company directly at the number that they have given you. We've heard of quite a few times when people have been getting calls from an Allstate, a State Farm, from this insurance broker, from that insurance broker, saying, oh, yes, I'm the new agent assigned to that, and I just need to verify some information. Is this your address? Good. We do not have your Social Security number on file. It didn't come over from your insurance company. Can you please verify that for me? Right? And the next thing you know, you think you're talking to an insurance company, so make sure you're doing that. Again, it's always a really great idea to check your credit for the next several months. Not just because of the storm, we heard what happened with Equifax and all of that. So this is a really good time to be mindful of what credit looks like. And with that being said, if you are moving because of the storm or anything, make sure that you've either stopped or forwarded your mail. Mail could still be piling up at that old residence, and who knows who is doing what. And then finally, be wary of email phishing scams. Many of these have come through my emails that I've seen that is, oh, you need relief, we're giving $1,000 out to everyone who contacts us and completes the application here. Oh, okay, I need $1,000, go ahead and do it. They'll have something on the website that might look like the Red Cross or look like Salvation Army or look like another organization that we're familiar with. Well, I can cut and paste a logo from an internet search with the best of them. And so we want to be careful of the emails that we get out. where they're fishing to just get some information from us, and we want to make sure that we are cautious of that there. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about, this really isn't a con or a scam, but we do know that there are several thousand cars that were flooded. This is some information that I pulled straight from Carfax, and so I was pretty amazed that there are over 325,000 cars that have been flooded that are back in use. And when you look at it, when the top 10 cities, yeah, Houston is number one. And it could be because of the storms that we've had and some things for the last couple of years. But, you know, the number's a little bit small on the graphic, but it's over 25,000 vehicles are on the road here in Houston who've been flooded. Transportation has always been a challenge for our clients, and it's going to continue to be more. Clients that did have insurance, but their car was 8, 9, 10 years old, but it was running and working well, they're going to get an insurance check back for not as much as it needs to be to get a new vehicle. And so, you know, will be individuals who are going to be taking cars, and they're going to be offering these great prices and things, but we want to make sure that we are checking and we're being careful for that, what it is. And so a few things about car purchase that is there is On the Road Lending. On the Road Lending is a nonprofit out of Dallas, and they've got some programs that they're trying to put together to help individuals get in safe, affordable cars. Also, you know, we stress this a lot, is our big dealerships here in Houston, they may not carry as many older vehicles or vehicles at price points that are always the best for a lot of our clients. At the same time, they stand on their reputations, and so they're going to be better at ensuring that a lot of those vehicles do not get on the road, the flooded vehicles, I should say. And what we see is a lot of the flooded vehicles are coming through Craigslist and some of those sites of a for sale by owner. It's tough to know what it is, but a lot of the dealerships, they have their reputation to stand on. Also Metro, right? We know that Metro and public transportation is getting better, and then we have the rails. It may be, as we're looking at getting a new vehicle, what does Metro look like? I think this is a great time for us to refamiliarize ourselves with the Metro system a little bit, just to see what it is. And then again, beware and go slow. It's always important to make sure that we're making a good decision, because a good decision that takes 3 weeks is a lot better than a quick decision that takes a week but costs us $5,000, or there's our insurance check, or there's our savings, or money that's people help. And so how to avoid flooded cars. And these are some things, and I pulled all of these straight from that Carfax link that was on the previous slide. But if it has a musty odor, carpets do not match, they're loose, it just doesn't seem to work right. You know, the main pieces of cars are not designed to rust, and they put a lot of coating on them, but around the doors and latches, especially in the trunk latch where it closes, if you see a lot of rust around there, water is not supposed to be getting in there, that's a sign. The biggest concern that a lot of people have with the flooded cars is the electrical work. So anytime you're shopping for a new car, looking on that, we want to make sure that we get in and we are checking every single electrical component. All the lights are popping up correctly. Nothing is flashing or beeping. And then always the best practice is getting the car checked through thoroughly by a trusted mechanic. This may cost a little bit of money, but a little bit of money, $35, $50 now, to make sure that we're not buying a car that's not going to work in 2 to 3 months is a really, really great thing to do. So with that being said, I do want to turn it over to Yvonne, and we're really happy that Yvonne is with us here this morning, and she's going to be talking about Bank on Houston and a few things that they're doing there. And so Yvonne, welcome.
Thank you, Richard. I hope everybody's doing well this morning. Let me just say I want to kind of piggyback off what Adrian was saying about self-care. And for me, self-care is saving pennies, nickels, and dimes, because when we save and we have even just a little bit of money, I think it makes us feel better. And so today, helping the unbanked and underbanked into the financial mainstream to build assets. Just like Richard said, people who have a bank account save more, pay down more debt, improve their credit, than the people that do not have a bank account. Again, it's about habit and savings. So let me tell you a little bit about Bank on Houston. Our founding partners was the City of Houston Comptroller's Office, the FDIC, the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. Bank on Houston is a collaborative to reduce the number of the unbanked and underbanked households in Houston. meaning that the unbanked are those individuals that don't have a checking or savings account. The underbanked are those that do have a checking or savings account, but they're using the costly products like the payday loans and the auto title places. And so it was actually started in San Francisco in 2007, but it was adopted by the National League of Cities, and then Bank on Houston was founded in 2008. So there's actually bank-on initiatives all around the United States, some of them more active than others, and so we're excited that our Bank on Houston initiative is very active, thanks to our City Controller, Chris Brown, and our FDIC and Federal Reserve founders. And so, let's see if this is moving here. There we go. Okay. So our model is to connect to encourage the end goal. So our vision is that financially secure families strengthen neighborhoods and the city, because we want all communities to have financial inclusion. So connect the families in the communities to safe and affordable financial products and services that work for that individual. You know, what is it that the individual needs when we talk about financial products and services, and then encourage healthy financial skills, habits, and relationships with family members, with the financial institutions that they're banking with the end goal to lift families out of poverty to become liquid asset healthy. And liquid asset healthy means that an individual has at least 6 months of emergency savings, because we don't want them to be liquid asset poor. Because what I found during the hurricane storm, if you have just a little bit of change during times such as those, you can be somewhat ready for something that happens. Because I went to just Family Dollar and their electronic system was down. They couldn't take my ATM card. They would only take cash, and so I only needed to purchase something I think that cost $2 and something cents. So thank goodness for me, I was able to scrape up some change. So that's also the importance of saving just our penny, nickels, and dimes, because it adds up. And so Houston households, 52% of our Houston households don't have 3 months of savings to live above the poverty level. 33% don't have 3 months of net worth to live above the poverty level, meaning that if you take your assets minus your liabilities, 33% don't have net worth to live above the poverty level. And this is Houston households, so we're not just talking about low to middle income families. 18% of Houston households don't have a checking or savings account, and that's the unbanked. 25% do have a checking or savings account, but they're still using the costly alternative financial products like the check cashing and payday loan places. And so that is the underbanked population. And so you can find that resource, as you can see, the Family Asset Accounts website at the bottom, where you can find that. So the importance of banking, to me, from what I've researched, is safety, convenience, lower cost, security, and financial future. And so what does that mean? So safety, basically, if you put your money in a bank or credit union, the banks are insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC. The credit unions are insured by the NCUA, the National Credit Union Administration. So you know, if you put your money in those places, unless you have over $250,000, your money is secure and it will be replaced if something happens. And so being in the banking system or the financial system, you know, you're able to get a lower cost on some products and services. The security, if you're not keeping your money in the mattress but in the financial institution, again, it's safe. The financial future, it helps build wealth. So if you're not in the financial mainstream, you become invisible to the financial system. So then if your goal one day is to purchase a home and you're not in the financial system, you know, the lenders, they can't see your saving habits. They can't see whether or not you're a risky borrower, so that they can approve you for a loan if your goal is, for example, to purchase a home. And so, you know, if you're in the banking system, it's also important because then you can compare interest rates. You can talk to the people that are working for the bank to find out what financial services are available, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So comparing bank versus check cashing services, when we talk about the unbanked and the underbanked, actually, if you're using the check cashing services, you can see the fees here that you may pay that total up to usually about $300, whereas if you have a bank or a credit union account, you actually save almost $300. So it always becomes, what's the cost benefit or the savings benefit, whether you're using the financial institution or if you're outside of the financial institution using the high-cost products and services, what is it costing you as opposed to how much you would save if you were actually in the banking system. So people who bank, they do increase their savings, and according to this chart, it shows that of this population, I believe 70% of all the population were using a savings account, and 67.8%, if you go to the next column, are unbanked. So it just kind of gives an overview of, just kind of show how selected savings methods for households that saved by banking status. So people who bank, there's an opportunity to decrease debt and build wealth because, again, it's all about our habits. If you think about it, if you understand the financial system again and you are saving money, most of the financial institutions have a required minimum amount to save. And so if we can save that amount and just leave that money there, then that means that we can avoid the fees. And then the other thing is that if we talk to the bankers or the credit union, the people that are in those particular financial entities, you can ask the questions, how can I save money? What type of financial education do you have? They can give you the access to those resources. Some of the I know there's one particular credit union that have a financial coach, and so we can learn more about resources if we are part of the banking or the credit union, rather than if we're not, and then we have to try to find those resources on our own. And so that's the other reason why I think it's an opportunity to decrease debt and build wealth, because it gives us access to the information. Again, increasing savings, access to resources like the financial education coaching. We can ask about the financial services such as the 401ks, the IRAs, and then also ask about the products to build credit. And then we also have access to affordable loan products, and we can compare products from one credit union to a bank. What is the cost of the loan product, whether it's a small business loan or whatever, and then also we have access to compound interest. And so savings, building wealth, is also about the compounding interest. If you're outside of the financial institution, then how can you receive that interest on your savings or on your securities? So basically it's about building assets. And so a little bit more about Bank on Houston. We have a product locator. If you go to Bank on Houston, www.bankonhouston.org, and you can click on the accounts link. Right now our website needs to be updated, but you can click on the link, go to accounts and product locator, type in your zip code or the address, and it'll give you a list of the financial institutions that's a part of our directory. We're always looking for more banks and credit unions that can offer products that are low cost, because in order to get individuals into the banking system, there was some research done by the FDIC, I believe in 2011, that basically did some research to show what products were safe and affordable, meaning that, without all the overdraft fees that's associated with accounts. And so what Bank On does is also try to help individuals to understand what those fees are like, to encourage individuals to talk with the financial institution, to have a relationship so they're comfortable asking questions. Because some financial institutions will actually give you a list of all the fees, and then it's an opportunity to have a conversation to get an understanding of what those fees mean. Because those fees, again, can be avoided if you understand that basically it's all about habit. So if they tell you that if you say the minimum required minimum balance of $200, so you're now practicing the habit of saving, and then when you get to that required minimum amount, you save it and you leave it. That's a simple way to avoid the fees. The difficult is in the behavior or the habits of not being able to save. And so that's why I think it's important for all of us to encourage each other, whether our clients or each other as, each of us as an individual, to save money so that we can just do the simple piece of saving the minimum required so we don't have to pay the fees, because of course that's how financial institutions make their money. But it's up to us as an individual to understand that process and how we can benefit from it, because we don't have to pay the fees if we can practice the habit of saving. That is the key to building wealth. And so basically, one, understanding the fees in the banking system, and then two, just saving up the required deposit amount, and then don't touch it, so that helps avoid the fees. Next, again, if the product locator is not working, you can always go to the Partner with Us tab and click on the participating banks and credit unions, and then I've highlighted the financial institution directory or the financial institution matrix. You can click on either one of those, and it'll actually pull up all the lists of the banks that's a part of that. And again, if any of you know of any of the other financial institutions that need to be a part of this, I always tell individuals what's working for you. If you have a banking product that you love, it's got you into the financial mainstream, and then you're able to graduate to a different product, let us know about it so that we can include it and let everybody else know about it as well. So visit our page. We will be making some changes to it soon. And so questions are asked when opening an account. What are the banking hours? You want the bank or the credit union to be convenient for you. What's the minimum opening balance? What's the minimum monthly balance? And that was the thing I was saying that if you can save up that minimum monthly balance and maintain it, then that may be a way for you to avoid fees. I know a lot of people don't write checks anymore, but you do want to ask, how much interest is the account earning? What's the deposit hold time? Because a lot of times we feel like just because we've deposited some money into our account that the money is available. Well, that's also the piece of having a relationship with a financial institution to find out, how the account actually works. Is opting in good or bad? Is opting out good or bad? What works for you? And so determine your account needs before actually opening an account. Will you be charged for writing checks for those that still write checks? Are you willing to pay a monthly fee? So there are some financial institutions where you might not have a monthly fee, but you may have, some other service charge. So ask those questions. And so Bank on Houston, we actually have an event that's coming up called Connecting the Dots to Financial Empowerment. And if you look over to the left, it says featured products include FDIC safe accounts. That's the accounts that when the FDIC did their research, that they found here is a list of requirements that would meet a family's need to help them back into the financial mainstream. There's also Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund that's also helping to encourage the financial institutions to offer their products as well. But during this particular event, we will have featured products from some of the financial institutions that are meeting these requirements. Their accounts are either FDIC safe accounts, small dollar short-term credit options, second chance accounts. And so we're asking for those Thrive Partners and nonprofit organizations that want to participate. They can come in and talk with the financial institutions. Nobody's there to open an account, but it's just a way to give the the nonprofit organizations access to have a relationship with the financial institutions so they'll know what products are available. So thank you all so much. And if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for joining us. Here at the very end, I do want to let you know that dates to remember is we do have our Financial Coaching Network quarterly meeting. It's going to be October 12th from 9 to noon, and that will be at the United Way building. Also, financial coach training is coming up in October, and I know a few emails have gone out. If you have more questions about that, you can always get a hold of myself or Dorian, and we can make sure that you get access to that information. And then the financial coaching webinar is going to be taking place on November 17th is when we're going to have our next webinar, and that will be from 9 to 10, and that is a Friday as well. So with that if there are any questions or anything specific, we do have a few minutes here this morning, and please go ahead and type those in the chat question or the chat box on the right-hand side. All right, I've seen nothing come through. Thanks everybody for being with us this morning. There is my contact information, Dorian's contact information, and then also Jessica Pugel, who is the evaluator of the Thrive program with the Working Partners. If there's anything that we can do, or if you do have follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Dorian, or if you have questions about Bank on Houston, Yvonne is a great resource and someone that we can touch base with there too. Have a fantastic Friday, and thank you for joining us this morning.